Are you guys all ready?
I'm ready.
All right, then.
Salute.
All right. Will the meeting come to order for the Harwich Agricultural Commission? I don't know what the date is. February 9th,
February
2022. Jeff was good enough to bring everybody together tonight. And the group hasn't met since, I'm pretty sure it was November 21st, 2017. So the object would be to get everybody reacclimated and begin some positive conversation about things going forward. One thing I do recall in a conversation with the select person earlier on was that the commission should establish a mission statement, because I don't think that was ever actually done. There were a handful of things that were dealt with. Initially, the AgCom put together the Right to Farm bylaw in town, and
right.
they did a great job with it, and they got it all to come to fruition. They also established the Harwich Farmers Market, and that's been taken over and run successfully by the Historical Commission for a number of years now. And here we are. So, I guess we need to do two things. One, we need to establish a chair for the meetings, and I believe we would need to establish someone to handle the secretarial position, which would be basically to keep the minutes, submit them to the appropriate authority at the time, and I think that's it, more or less. So, fellows,
Are we live?
we are. You fellows got any thoughts?
So is this it? Four of us? Did,
I didn't recently.
McNamara didn't get back?
Weren't able to, no, okay.
No.
Well, we can continue to try to reach out to her and, you know, see if she's gonna be available. I mean,
Right.
hopefully everything's okay and she's in good health and all, but,
Absolutely.
I didn't want to hound her, I just left one message.
yeah, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
everybody's got a busy life as it is, so.
So is it supposed to be a 5 board member, or is there,
I believe we can have up to 7.
okay, what's the minimum?
4 is the quorum.
Four would be a quorum,
Okay.
so that would be minimum. My understanding is always that an odd number is best, that way there's the ability to break a tie if there ever need to be on a vote. But, you know, bearing in mind, it's intended to be an advisory commission. Doesn't have any, it doesn't have any teeth, it doesn't have any ability. It can come up with ideas and
Sure.
try to form direction and be of assistance. Arbitrating difficulties in the agricultural field is part of its charge. I'm sure there's some other fine details to it that I can't think of right offhand.
Yep.
I did talk to Skipper Lee.
Yep.
He has a odd schedule, but he would like to be part of it in one way or another.
Yep.
He's
Okay.
another very active farmer here in town, so
Yep, I had spoken with Skipper a few weeks ago, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
And, you know, he's got some concerns about things that should be addressed as well. Well, maybe to start with, we should decide on who's gonna take the position of chair and who's gonna take the position of secretary. So, if anybody has any thoughts?
what are the, I understand with the secretary, what is the chair actually responsible for?
Basically, attending the meetings and keeping the meetings in check, to call it to order, chair the meeting, run the meeting, that's all. Possibly would be the contact person from time to time. I'm not sure that's necessarily an official part of the duty, but somehow it seems to come with the territory.
Does anybody want that spot?
I don't mind doing the chair position, I'll be glad to help, but I do not have the time to do the secretarial part, the filing and the meetings.
I'm terrible with paperwork, I'll be honest with you.
Are you good at that, Ben?
I'd have to probably look into it more to really see if I
I'll,
officially.
if you wanna be the chairman, I'll do the secretary.
That would be fine, I think that's,
You wanna vote on it? All in favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Yeah.
So be it. Okay. I see.
Anything pressing at this moment that needs to be addressed?
I'm not sure there's anything that's particularly pressing, but I think we need to have an overview of what each person's concerns are, and if there are concerns in the community, develop some dialogue and try to find a way to work through them. Some of the conversation that I've heard has been livestock regulation, or actually lack thereof. Very simply, we've got an animal control officer, and if that individual doesn't have firm guidelines, it's pretty hard work to do a job and do it well, because everything is wide open to anyone's interpretation. So, and as I understand it, it is primarily the Board of Health that is responsible for that criteria, and my feeling would be that we should develop some suggestions to approach the Board of Health with and begin to put it in motion.
I agree.
with that.
I agree too.
Jeff and I went to a meeting about a week and a half ago,
Yep.
and it was very good. They want some help and some input. They're not farmers, they're just,
Sure.
people, and I think they'll be good to work with.
I think as a citizen with animals, I asked over and over and over for criteria as to what would be inspected, and I'm given nothing. So I would like to know what's being inspected before someone shows up on my property and tells me I'm doing something wrong. That there's no, it's very arbitrary what's going on, so.
No parameters.
There's not at all, to me, it's very scary.
Right.
Just as an example, the inside of my house has been deemed a kennel by the town of Harwich. Because I have more than 3 dogs, which opens me up to be inspected with no notice inside my house anytime. And I am just blown away by that.
Well, I for one don't know anything about kenneling regulations, to be honest with you.
Neither do I.
It would seem to me that it would be very important to involve animal control for perspective, for knowledge. As I see it, that would be advantageous.
Right.
Yeah, I'd like to, I know like the Board of Health controls the horse regulations and things like that. The
Yeah,
state-
bigger livestock.
Yeah, well, they don't have anything really beyond horses in their, which they should, they're opening up discussion on it now.
Yep. Well, there
It's-
was some discussion regarding swine through the Board of Health. There was an issue several years ago in town that brought it to light, and it was kind of controversial at the time. And my understanding at the time was they were going to look at it on a case-by-case basis. That's how I understood it. Now, this is going back a few years, so.
One of the things that I do know they were looking at, and some of the other towns have already done pig regulations on. I brought the issue up to the Board of Health in August, asking what I need for pig permits, of which no one had any idea. We're now into February, and that meeting Aaron and I went to was the first thing, and they wanted to discuss the fees. For what? We've now I spoke with one of the members of the board. Chatham and Dennis have it all spelled out, and it's pretty good. Harwich needs to do that.
Well, this is gonna be the part where we come in, and I think with the assistance of the animal control officer, pull together the regulations from other towns, take a look and see what's gonna be applicable, see what's gonna make sense.
Well, I don't think I might have.
There's also the state regulation,
Right.
and several towns have different regulations. At the Board of Health meeting, we had numerous different ones like Yarmouth, and it's all over the place. So we do need to.
Like I have
all these together,
Chatham's.
Put them together.
Right.
And figure out what works with Harwich.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. And then we got a baseline,
Right.
Yeah.
you know.
Then we can see what we need to either add
And
or.
I had a question because they were bringing up bylaws from way back when. And I remember when I was a kid, pigs were not allowed in Harwich for a few years.
Yep.
And, I mean, you remember back when they had the auction at,
Yep,
what was that?
Westgate,
Escape. I
Yep.
mean, auctions there all the time. That was a great place.
sure,
I remember as a kid, we got a couple pigs there and raised them. And
yep.
so,
Yep. It's a really nice riding stable now. The
yeah.
folks that own it have done a really good job with it, you know. But, that was 40-odd years ago.
It was a few years ago, yeah. 45, yeah.
Yeah, probably 40,
Yeah.
quite a while ago.
Yeah. So,
Well, maybe what we should do is prepare to pull together the information from the various sources. So then, once we've got that, we could brainstorm. And I would think it would be beneficial to bring animal control in right off the bat. Because I would expect that the animal control officer would have some very definitive ideas. Because number one, she knows what's going on in town with various places, and I would expect that she has heard, of other people's concerns. So, to me, that would be beneficial. And at the end of the day, I mean, that's the individual that has to do the enforcement too.
Right.
So, her perspective, I think, is going to be very important.
I mean, we can all understand what the concern's probably gonna be. Is
Sure.
smell, the noise, and,
Yep.
that type of thing. So setting our own boundaries ahead of the game is
Absolutely.
a smart way to go. I had a question before, and nobody really knew the answer, is they were going back on bylaws from way back when, in different situations, and my question was, since we voted in the right to farm, do all those old bylaws no longer exist? And do we start all over again with everything?
I don't think that absolved anything. I think those regulations are still in force, but I think time and circumstance warrants change. I mean, turn the clock back 35, 45 years ago. People that had a horse or a couple horses were a lot more sparse than they are now. The horse population in town is considerable.
Now,
Yeah,
compared to what it was?
yeah,
Really?
yeah, there's quite a few. And the quality of the barns and the facilities, I mean, there's three indoor riding rings right in town. Right, you got one on Queen Anne Road,
Yep.
one off of Old Chatham, and one down on Westgate Road, right?
The population's increased.
Going back, when we were back in high school, I mean, that was nothing more than something that happened in California. It didn't
Right.
happen here.
You go off to the horse shows, I remember
Right,
that.
so, I mean, things have changed considerably.
When I head out, the door downstairs is locked, so once you leave, you can't get back
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, have a nice night.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, the whole equine thing's changed a lot, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, going back years ago, I mean, you know, there were a couple people in town that had a couple of cows, and there was a hog here or there, and, you know, everybody knew who had a pig or two, but there wasn't anybody that was raising them for sale. You know, and I think sometimes people get confused when they hear about somebody raising pigs, that they have this vision of a piggery where you have a great big pen and 200 hogs running rampant and garbage trucks dumping refuse, but I mean, that's not what it is. I mean,
Smaller scale.
yeah.
Much smaller
Well,
scale.
the practice of animal husbandry is important.
Yeah.
You know, cleanliness and,
Skipper was gonna try and put together some,
yeah,
guidelines and stuff.
yeah, absolutely.
He's been doing it.
Well, he does a great job at it, you know? I
Yeah,
mean,
I was floored when he told me how much grain he had coming in just for that month. I'm like, wow.
yeah, he does a great job at it. So having him on board for that would be beneficial. You know, but like I say, the combination of personalities and concerns are probably gonna give us the ability to present something to the Board of Health and, you know, give them food for thought, because it'll be up to them ultimately to act on it, but
Sure.
if we can bring some info to the table, it's a good start.
Now, do you think, like for the next meeting, we should focus on pigs or just animals in general, or what we're going to the Board of Health with?
Well, I think what we're gonna have to do is break it down. Because you've got, you know, you've got various segments, right? You've got rabbits, you've got poultry, you've got goats, sheep, cattle, hogs.
Ducks, everything.
Yeah, all of that, you know, so I think it needs to be split up in different aspects, and each group needs to be looked at. And again, this is why I say having animal control on board would be good, because I would expect that by now she's probably had an opportunity to see most of the places in town. And I'm certain she's met quite a few people, so I would expect she'd have some feedback and some direction and possibly things of concern.
Right.
I would think one of the major concerns, at least for the Board of Health, is gonna be, manure.
Absolutely.
Disposal of it.
Yep.
Whatever, you're gonna reuse it or whatever you're gonna do with it.
No question about it.
That would probably be their number one.
Well, in the stabling regulations right now, I mean, part of what you gotta do is you have to have a manure management plan. So you have to have a way to handle it, that conforms with the regulations, and
Is this for anything or a certain number of animals or?
that's where it's really open-ended.
Where does this apply?
There's very little of any of it that's particularly definitive,
Right.
you know? I just gotta look at it and, involve some other people throughout town that maybe are a little bit more specialized in various areas to, you know, to pinpoint the issues of concern.
Sure. And there's gotta be a line between personal use and commercial use. Probably completely different.
Well, if you look at the state guidelines, there are things that are very definitive. Equine is looked at differently than some other livestock. My understanding is if you're not breeding, the equine is not necessarily considered agriculture through the eyes of the state. That's my understanding. So at that point, it seems to me that there's probably in some cases an overlap of regulation that is somewhere between zoning regulations and agricultural regulations. And I think the two have to learn to cohabitate. I don't think they can stay forever apart, you know? But again, it comes to that, and, I mean, I don't see this being a short conversation. I expect that it's gonna take some time to work through it. So, I mean, I would think collectively we should be able to put together an agenda for the upcoming meeting.
Yeah, like Harwich is, their recognition of the state right to farm law is great. And similar to what Aaron's saying, a lot of what it says and what was adopted in 2009 as a right to farm, in this building, the people tell you can't do it. And in this law, it says you can. So that's where it's, you know, and this thing spells it out. It has definitions. It has
Everything's there, yeah.
specifically everything. And you come up here to try to comply with your laws and you're told no.
Well, and again, this is where it has to be picked apart,
Yeah.
and things need to be established definitively, so there can be a broader understanding by more people. If everything's open to interpretation, you know, everybody's got their own ideas.
It's our job to make other people aware of what you are allowed to do in the first place.
Mhm.
Right.
So if we can all get a copy of the state regs
They have
and
copies.
read it, we all
Like
have
to
to
have
know
one.
what to do and
Yep.
understand it,
Yep,
come with some suggestions
exactly.
and try to figure this out. Because I have no idea what the state laws are. I don't have animals except for my puppy dog,
Mhm.
you know, but I'm a farmer and
I mean,
farming's important.
beyond animal, it applies to growing things as well. And so, you know, if you go on the Town of Harwich website, the first line is, the Town of Harwich is a quiet resort and agricultural community.
They have that back.
That's their opening line.
So I thought it was all.
Which I would think is great. There's another thing for us to,
Absolutely.
that we're encouraging that.
Oh, agriculture's been a key part of the town forever, you
Yep.
know?
Let's start it.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Agriculture, fishing, and
Cranberry growing, everything.
Well, that's,
when you think about it back, there was no landscapers back then because people didn't care if the lawns were green.
years ago, I mean, it was farmers and fishermen, and if you wanted to eat, you were one of the two.
Yeah.
In most cases, both.
This is like first house that actually had a lawn with irrigation. I never cared.
Yeah,
I got
exactly.
rid of mine.
Huh?
I got rid of
Well,
mine.
you put the irrigation in.
I put yours, but I got rid of mine. I don't have any grass in
I
it.
see how it is.
I brought it over to you. I have, and I only have the one copy, but I can make copies of Chatham's regulation on different animal things,
Okay.
which are, you know, they're pretty good.
Well-
Perhaps what we should do, Jeff, is accumulate that information, and then on the next meeting, let the agenda show that, that discussion
Yep.
would be part of it, you know, and if there's anybody in town that wants to participate, at least they'd have the opportunity.
Absolutely.
So that would be a mission.
Mhm.
It was said to me a long time ago that, you know, we should prepare a mission statement for the selectmen. I think that's something we need to give some thought to. I'm not 100% sure how to put that together. That would,
I think we need to have our idea of what our purpose is, put that together.
right.
I'm kind of surprised that we don't have a charge from the selectmen or somebody telling us what they want us to do.
Well, I think there was a long time ago, but I think it was kind of vague.
Okay.
So I guess what I'm saying, in short, is to me, that's gonna be something that we need to explore and have a little better understanding. And that'll probably take a few questions and answers. I'm inclined to think maybe a couple of phone calls can get the bugs out of that. I don't mind doing that.
So if we get the state regs, we can all look at those, get the couple, say, 3 different town regs, look at them, and pick and choose, and try and make our own set of regs based on all of that information, and put something together, and see if we can get some input, and see if we can get, you know,
My question about the local town regs about animals and whatnot, would we want to just stick to strictly, you said state regs and town? Do we want to stick to just strictly in Barnstable County for town regulations? Or should we look into possibly Plymouth County's regulations as well on animals and in the towns in that area?
I'm inclined to think we want to stay a little closer to home.
Okay.
You know,
Just a thought?
well, let me just say why. Number one, Plymouth's the biggest town in the state,
Right.
geographically.
Right.
So I would think that maybe in a place like that,
Mhm.
their regulations might be a little bit different right across the board, because they may have a little more land.
Okay.
Where we are,
Unlimited.
4 acres, 5 acres, 10 acres is a big piece of land.
Mhm.
Other parts of the state, it's not that big, right?
Yep.
So, and you know, those are considerations of, same with setbacks and,
right.
you know,
Right.
I mean, you may have the right to do what you want to do, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing to do, because you got to keep peace with everybody around you at the same time, you know?
Mhm.
It's got to be fair for everybody concerned.
Yep.
Going forward, you know, the Conservation Commission has a lot of bearing on what some of the agricultural things would be going on in town in general. You know, they still have the oversight of the cranberry bogs on Main Street, and there's some potential things going on right there that may bear some conversation at some point. Conservation Commission also has an open meadow down at Community Gardens
Yep.
down on Sisson Road. That piece of property, as I understand, was intended for agricultural use, and that may be a conversation to engage with conservation as to, you
Yep.
know, something to do with that.
Show our support.
Yeah, you know, I mean, there's things to look at. Quite a few years ago now, the AgCom put on a thing they call Farm Fest.
Mhm.
Remember that? I think a lot of people had a lot of fun with that.
Is that at the community center? Or
No, that was Meet Your Farmer. That's done by Farm Bureau.
okay.
Totally different
Yep.
thing. But
I remember it now.
what they did, it was a week-long event.
Intense, right?
No,
No?
no, various places around town.
Oh,
Would
okay.
each one would do an open house at a particular schedule. And
Okay, I'm thinking of
basically
something else.
invite the public to your place, and it was like a meet and greet, and if you had things to offer, it was available. If you wanted to do a demonstration of, you know, what your operation was all about.
Yep.
A lot of different things took place. A number of equine places participated. I participated. Various other people did. Seemed to be pretty enjoyable. I mean, at one point I had, my whole yard was full of cars. I had people up there all over the place. And,
Yeah.
you know, it was pretty popular.
Yep.
And I mean, to me, that's good for the exposure and the positive attributes of local agriculture.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've had tours at the bog through the historical,
Mm-hmm.
last probably 10, 15 years during picking season and stuff. And I'll bet you there's times that 50, 75 people there.
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, I mean, you
They're
know,
all very asking questions, they're all, you know, interested in what was going on.
absolutely.
The more they know, the more support we'll have throughout the town,
That's right,
you know?
absolutely. You know,
Better exposure.
there's nothing about agriculture that's foreign. Everybody depends on it every day. So,
Absolutely.
you know, to try to bolster it and promote it and promote local economics is also positive.
It doesn't just show up at the market on its own.
That's right. That's a fact.
Doesn't just show up there on its own.
Yep.
Rolling those big trailer trucks, right, and they just bring it right in.
That's
Yeah.
what they all think, right? Yeah, and going back on that, I do remember something similar to that it was at the community center gym one year. They had booths instead, and it might have been
That
maybe
was-
not just agricultural people.
That was Meet Your Farmer.
That was the same.
We did
Okay,
that
I didn't
for-
know if it
We
was.
did that for a number of years. The only reason it stopped is because of the COVID
Mhm.
thing that took place here a couple of years ago. But that was sponsored by the Cape and Islands Farm Bureau. The last couple of years, we had close to 1,000 people come through. Really, quite a turnout, pretty impressive.
Yeah, the one I went to was great.
Yeah, it was a good
Well,
time.
that's not coming back yet. We got another year probably.
That's a good question. I think Farm Bureau, on the whole, is probably very interested in continuing it, but if you can't put those people all in one room, you can't do much about it.
Right.
Nobody knows until these can come off permanently,
Yeah, exactly.
basically what it is.
You know,
Right.
it wasn't too many years ago, if you walked in town hall with a mask on, everybody was running.
Well, I
So,
You
feel
walked
like
in anywhere.
Oh.
walking into
The
the bank,
school-
I feel like,
yeah, honestly,
Heard the schools have released that
Yeah.
soon in the state
things have changed for a lot of people for, you know,
for
for
lifting
a lot of
the,
reasons.
lifting the requirement at schools.
I mean, I don't have anything else to add to this. I mean, you guys have any
No, I mean, this is great.
No, I
any
think,
thoughts? I mean, at least we've got some direction to start with, and, you know, I mean, obviously, we've got to abide by the public meeting rules and,
Mhm.
you know, all that stuff, because everybody had to go through their training process.
Right.
But I mean, there are people here in town, in the town hall, to direct any questions to if we've got them, and I'm sure there's gonna be some. So,
and I think it'll be good that the other boards know that we're becoming alive. And
Right.
that they can come to us with questions if they have questions, because I know all the boards have questions about agriculture. You know, I watch a lot of this stuff on TV. I don't go to too many meetings personally, but it's a lot more comfortable in my recliner. With the fire going, I see you all the time, Mark.
I don't blame you.
yeah,
But, you know, we could offer some assistance in a lot of places.
Absolutely. I agree, Aaron.
I agree. I think this can be a very positive thing for the town on the whole. But, you know, it all starts with the first step, and that's what tonight is, so.
Right,
Correct.
exactly.
Anything you fellows wanna add, or any thoughts?
No,
I just appreciate you guys being here and getting this moving.
Likewise.
I think we can do some good for the town.
Well, it's the first one, and we're gonna, meet every month, or what do you want to
The
do?
way it was listed before was the second Wednesday of each month. Is what the original meeting schedule was for the board. That's what it says on the website.
As long as we don't conflict with somebody else. Let's take a look at that.
see
Make
what
sure we don't have any
schedules are.
conflicts. You still have to advertise it and go through the, you know, the regular process. So right for the moment, let's leave that open-ended, I think.
Okay.
And-
Wednesday works for me, Thursdays, between Shriners and Masons and all that other stuff.
Sure.
I don't have a Thursday left.
Okay.
Wednesday works well.
Okay.
Weekend.
All right. Well, unless anybody else got any hot ideas, I could say we could entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Aye.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.